special guest today is David Hardy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, David, and how you got started in the horror genre.
Okay. Well, ever since I was a little kid, I've always been fascinated with just the dark and gritty and anything that's really kind of like a macabre, I think is how you say it. And I was actually introduced to the horror genre when I was at a young age. I was like 10, I believe, when I actually saw Friday the 13th, the first one. And I just fell in love. I've always been fascinated with like fantasy dragons and the Grim Reaper and stuff like that. And so once I found that genre of movies, it kind of led into books. And, my first book was Needful Things by Stephen King. That monster I actually read when I was in 6th grade, I believe. So from there, I just devoured all I could get my hands on.
And is that what made you write in the horror genre as well?
Yes, ma'am. Everything I've read everything from, just classic horror, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, all the way up to current day splatterpunk. It all fascinates me. I love evoking an emotion from somebody, either via, entertainment through television or through my books.
Yeah. What's your favorite subgenre?
My favorite subgenre would probably be post-apocalyptic.
Yeah. Fantastic. And why would that be?
It is so scary to imagine life as it is now without having what we have now. If you've ever read Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is probably number one in my book for, post-apocalyptic horror, it is just heart-wrenching to sit there and think, what are you going to do for food? What are you going to do for water? All these things that we take for granted on a daily basis, and then not have those and thrown into a world where, you have people that become cannibals or just murder for fun or other nasty details of the human nature just baffles me. And it is so just mind captivating.
It is scary to think if that would ever happen, what would we do? It is a scary thought.
It really is.
And there are a lot of films that sort of like keep coming up about it as well, aren't they? Just recently.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there was a movie just recently released that was actually pretty good. Actually, Book of Eli, which is kind of newer, post-apocalyptic world. Absolutely fantastic movie.
Yeah. So how do you get your ideas?
Usually just day-to-day life. It's funny. I actually keep a little journal, a little notebook, so to speak, that I jot down all these different ideas that come to me. And it can be as simple as, basically just driving down the road. I hate to say it, but like seeing a car accident and putting yourself in that emotional trauma, so to speak, it kind of speaks volume to you, and it allows you to kind of immerse yourself into a world that you don't know what's going to happen. Like what happens next, or what would happen if, and so it's just like almost like a domino effect of ideas that just start spiraling out of control until I have an idea for them.
Do you ever base them off your own experiences or your own fears that you have?
Yes. Yes, I do. So, a lot of my books actually, or the 3 that I have currently out right now, actually have a lot of personal meaning to them. Some of the characters are based off of people that I know or have known. It also deals with topics that have happened in real life, maybe not necessarily to myself, but some of them have, but also from close friends and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what about your characters? Do you base those off personal experiences and people that you know?
Yes. So I take emotions, and I like reading about emotions because I feel like if you can actually evoke that emotion from reading, whether it's anger to happiness to sadness, then I've done my job. And a lot of my characters do, I guess, I take a little bit of the emotional side that I have, whether it's, anger, sadness, whatever, and inject that into their story arc, and then base the characters off of certain individuals in real life to kind of come up with this character that I have.
Yeah. And how do you develop that further?
I get in their mindset. So Nathan, who is my lead male main character in All the Rage, he is one of those characters that just kind of pop in my head of, okay, I have somebody in my life that is just, they're always angry. Like, dude, you seriously need some anger management. And this guy was based off of him, that pure hatred emotion of not just anybody in particular, but everybody. I threw him into a chaotic world of just where he could basically let himself free. He could enact what he wanted to do. He could be as mean and hateful as he wanted and have no repercussions. And so Nathan is a full embodiment of what I would consider pure hatred and pure anger.
Yeah. So are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'm both. So I do a general outline of where I kind of want my story to go. And then it's basically just a few word sentences for each chapter that I'm going to be writing in. And then I just sit down at the keyboard and I just basically regurgitate everything that pops in my head.
Yeah. Do you find it's easier sort of like being in the middle?
I do, actually, because I've tried doing the pantser just like from beginning to end. And my problem is with my mental health, I'm not capable of staying on one particular story arc. I have to really kind of hone into it and focus on it, because if I don't, I may be going from post-apocalyptic to space in a matter of a few chapters. It's just how my brain works. So being what I consider both a pantser and a plotter, it allows me the ability to stay on track while still injecting a lot of my creativity into the chapters as I go.
Fantastic. So what's the hardest part about writing in horror?
The hardest part is, for me, I write for my own pleasure. I write for my own ability to read and get my ideas out. And if somebody enjoys my story, that's great. The hardest part is, to me, just having the time to actually write. I'm unfortunately very busy. I don't write full time. I would love to. I just don't see that in the cards anytime soon. But the hardest part would be taking the time to actually write like I want to. Yeah.
And have you ever come across a scene that you found really difficult to write?
Yes. All the Rage has a few chapters in it that were personal experiences, not of myself, but a very close friend. Everything she went through had been sort of kind of not verbatim, but had been injected into that story quite a bit. And if you've read it, then you understand where I'm coming from with that. I don't want to give it away too much for the people that haven't read it, but some of the trauma that she went through actually happened in real life.
And how did she feel about you writing about it?
She gave me 100%, like, do it, get it out there. She is now a super advocate. Or I should say she was a super advocate for that particular thing. She did great things in her lifetime, and it was kind of my way of paying a little bit of a homage to her.
Sounds lovely that she gave you the 100% to go ahead with that. She probably found some closure in it, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's definitely a little healing involved in it. She knew of the story sort of kind of before I wrote it. I kind of gave her the idea and wanted to use her, background in the story. And she said, absolutely 100%. I told her what I was going to write. She said, absolutely 100%. And the story just took off from there.
That's brilliant. So have you got any exciting projects that you're currently working on?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm actually doing co-authoring a kind of extreme horror detective story with another author. I can't mention that person's name since I didn't clear it with her. I kind of forgot. But me and her are actually doing a little bit of a co-authoring on a book. It should hopefully be done sometime around Christmas, I hope. I'm a little behind just because I got so busy. But yes, I do have a massive serial killer detective story coming out.
Fantastic. So how do you feel the horror genre is going to evolve?
Just like anything, it really just depends on society. I feel in the near future, from what I'm seeing, splatterpunk is going to probably become a little bit more mainstream, I think, or extreme horror, just because it's always been kind of in the background, and it's slowly gaining some traction. So I'm very interested to see that. But the other thing too is another subgenre that I have a huge thing for is space horror. And I feel like with the new space race going on currently, I feel like that might be something that pops up pretty soon.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of new subgenres popping up at the moment, doesn't there?
Yeah, there's quite a few. And like I said, it just really depends on what our readers want. That's why whenever we listen to reviews from, like our ARC teams or advanced reader copies, even all the way down to our betas, we like to see what everybody has to say about what they're looking for or what they want. And then we try to cater to them as much as we want. And I'm an avid reader as well when I have time. And so I inject what I personally want to see more of into what I create.
Yeah. I think quite a few subgenres are sort of like going to come to the forefront. And you are right. Splatterpunk does seem to be gaining a lot of traction at the moment.
Yeah, some good, some bad.
Yeah. You're going to get that with everything though, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Any which way you go, you're going to get, the good and the bad. And it's all about just being able to take your lumps and have a good time with it.
So do you feel any sort of like remorse about what you put your readers through?
No, absolutely not. And the reason it's kind of funny because like at the very beginning, like when you look at the cover of my novellas that I have out right now, every single one of them says this is an extreme horror novella. And as a reader, if you do have triggers, it should be up to you to make sure your mental health is number one. Now, a caveat to that is, yes, I highly, highly care about my readers' mental health. Okay. Now, if they're willing to subject themselves to whatever may be in my books, then I wholeheartedly do not feel bad if they get to the ending and they're like, what did I just read? Like mind blown, because that happens quite a bit with my books. Yeah. But I have had readers come to me that say, oh, I'm really interested in reading this, but this is my trigger. Is that trigger in your book? And I'll be blunt and honest. And yes, this trigger is there. If you can't read it, I tell you right now, do not purchase this book. Do not read this book. It is not for you. I don't want you to have any kind of negative connotations or negative reactions to my book. And if you do, please let me know so that way I can see where I need to change. If it's a subject matter, then that subject matter has been discussed pretty heavily in the horror genre world. And again, if you subject yourself to it, I expect you to kind of know where you're going with your mental health. And if you ever have a problem with it, always reach out and contact somebody because mental health is a huge thing for me.
Yeah, that's right. People do need to contact someone when they need some help. I know absolutely. It's hard for some people though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to play demographics. I'm not going to play any kind of, separation of society or separation of people. I myself, I have a counselor, I have a therapist, and I am a huge advocate for it. I think everybody should have one at some point in time, just to even have somebody just to talk to.
Yeah, that's right. So tell us a little bit about your books.
Yeah, so I have 3 books currently out right now. The first two that I would like to mention would be All the Rage and Consumed by Rage, or as I call it, the Rage Duet. This follows a male main character by the name of Nathan and a female main character by the name of Ashley. And so it is a dual point of view perspective, one from the male, one from the female. It does alternate pretty much throughout the full novellas. They're basically, so Nathan's an ex-convict and Ashley was put in and I'm apologizing if this is offensive to anybody, but it's a mental institute or a mental health facility or a mental hospital. She and him kind of collide in this chaotic world of post-apocalyptic, air quote, zombie world. And together they are basically traversing the landscape trying to survive this outbreak, quote unquote. It takes them pretty much from the central United States all the way to the Western United States. It does cover 2 books, and they go through some rough times. When you think it couldn't get any worse, trust me, it does. And at the end of it, you will be left scratching your head saying, what did I just read? So it is not what I would consider a novice novella. It is definitely a medium stepping stone. And then that leads me into what I would consider my kind of like stepping stone into the extreme horror genre, if that's something you're interested in. And that is called Black Death. Now, Black Death is basically, imagine a cross between necrotizing fasciitis, which is a disease of like, a skin-eating disease, crossed with Ebola. It is unleashed into the world. Again, dual perspective from a male main character and a female main character. They meet up in a hospital where he was unfortunately in an accident and has amnesia. The female lead is actually his therapist, like physical therapist. And so they are trying to, 1, survive, and 2, find out who he is. And to not get any further into it, to spoil stuff for our listeners tonight, it is very interesting and it will throw you for a loop.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, David. So thank you very much for taking my invitation. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity.
You're very welcome.